Mostly I'm focused on helping other people build wealth and build revenue with building rental properties because there's a huge opportunity right now in new construction rentals, I feel like.
Welcome to the Idaho Real Estate Investor Show, where we bring strategies and knowledge that will help you succeed in Idaho's ever-changing real estate market. I'm Jonna Weber. I'm an Idaho investor, realtor, and entrepreneur. I've been successfully investing for over 2 decades and helping countless others to do the same. We'll bring you real stories from successful investors, expert advice, and insights to help you build generational wealth through the power of real estate. Whether you're just getting started or well on your way, let's jump in. Hey guys, welcome back to the Idaho Real Estate Investors Show. So glad you're here. Today, I am interviewing my friend Zach Matson. Now, Zach started out as a buy and hold investor, then fix and flipper, and then a couple years ago, he really narrowed in the world of building and development. And what's so cool is he's really been able to take advantage of changes in our local zoning code. This applies to wherever you live, but here in Boise specifically, he's zeroed in on that, learning what works, what doesn't work, and is really going to break down exactly what's working for him and how it might apply to you as someone looking for investment opportunities, no matter where you live. Very excited about this show and just the quality of person that Zach represents. You're going to love him. And as usual, please, if you get value out of this show, share it with a friend. That would mean the world to me. Here we go. Without further ado, here's my interview with Zach Matson. Hey, welcome back to the Idaho Real Estate Investors Show. I'm Jonna. I'm here with my friend Zach Matson. Zach, it's so great to have you here today. Thanks for jumping in. I know we made this reservation for the studio at the last minute, and I just really wanted to get you on here because you're such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to so many things, but specifically, we're going to be talking today about zoning. And we're going to be talking about creative ways to excel in this market when a lot of people say there's no cash flow, there's investing's dead right now, I'm going to wait it out, the market's going to crash. There's so much going on, and there's frankly a lot of naysayers out there. But I use you as an example of creativity in action and utilizing the opportunities that are coming to you right now to succeed in today's market. Very excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a little bit last minute. I'm glad we were able to schedule it. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And for those of you who might think you've listened to the show, even in our last iteration as the Boise Reen Show, you may remember Zach. He actually is our first kind of repeat guest to the show. So congratulations, Zach. And he was on episode 13 of the Boise Reen Show. And in that episode, he really explains his background on how this whole opportunity came about. And he's got extensive experience with fix and flip. So that's an episode, if you're into fix and flipping, you're definitely going to want to bounce back and listen to and hear his story because it's really inspirational and packed full of knowledge. But today we are talking about what's going on 2025 in the city of Boise and surrounding areas and how we're taking advantage of it. So Zach, last year you came on the show, you talked about how you transitioned from fix and flip. You're now getting into development, and you said it was going to be a powerful year for you. Take me into a day in the life now and what you're up to.
Yeah, so I guess going back to 2023, I went to a goal setting seminar, and I really, at the end of that year, and I really focused on 2024 being a huge growth year. And so I set a goal to get 80 units into the build pipeline. And last year, I guess it tailed into the beginning of this year, but I have probably over 100 right now that are like in the pipeline, in the development and build pipeline. It's super exciting. And it's been like, it's created a lot of growth areas personally and professionally, but I just see there's a ton of opportunity and I'm excited.
Oh, that's so cool. I remember going to coffee with you a couple years ago and you were talking about just starting this transition. And I don't know if you know this, but I use you as an example of someone that is utilizing what's been given to us in this market right now to thrive. In fact, I spoke recently at a conference and I spoke about you by name because I'm so excited to see the ingenuity that you've employed in what you're doing right now. So you talk about all these lots and so forth, but break down for our listeners specifically what your business model is right now.
Yeah, so right now it's twofold. So I have my own projects that are going on. That's basically mid-size development, and it's all in. So I focus strictly on infill development. So that's development inside city limits that's already zoned, and so it's smaller scale. And I focus on that for two reasons. One, it's manageable for my small team and you get some economies of scale. But then there's also good margin and there's not that much competition. So like really it's too small for the big guys. So that I'm not competing with the big builders and big developers, but it's like too big for the small guys that are doing like one or two at a time. And so the competition is a lot lower. So that's for my own stuff. And also what I'm focused on for driving revenue in my building company is also like helping other people build their rental properties primarily. We'll do custom builds and everything too, but mostly I'm focused on helping other people build wealth and build revenue with building rental properties because there's a huge opportunity right now in new construction rentals, I feel like.
I would agree with that. When you're talking about building rentals, I'm curious, what's a good buildable rental to you? Is it a 3-2 or is it a 2-1? And I'm talking about bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yeah, it depends. If you already own a property, so in the city of Boise, they changed the ADU rules. So if you already own a property and you have the space to put an ADU in your backyard, that can be a 2-1 or a 2-2. And we can get into the nuances of like how you want to design that. But so there's an opportunity there. Then there's also an opportunity in duplexes or triplexes or even just single family homes. But I would say more what I'm going to be focusing on with other people is taking advantage of the new zoning to do duplexes and triplexes and fourplexes. And those would be 3-2, 3-3, 3.5. And where I see a lot of opportunity for people to get some extra rental income is designing them as either midterm or short-term rentals, because new construction is going to be more expensive than buying something that's existing typically. And again, there's a lot of opportunity like in saving a lot of money, and we'll probably get into that. But basically in order to take advantage of new construction and having the newness of it is you put a little extra design in it and design it for modern living. So like a lot of our rentals that we're designing and building right now, we're doing en suites in every bedroom. So you can rent them out easier as either rooms to rent or midterms or short-term rentals. If you have an Airbnb and you have maybe a family all coming into town together, and you have a couple couples or kids and everybody has their own bathroom, it's going to make your rental stand out.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And one thing that I think a lot of people underestimate is remodeling a mid-century or older house, or even a 70s or older house, right? It's a major undertaking. And a lot of times, I personally have had that experience, been so surprised how sometimes it's even more economical than start from scratch and build new just with the floor plan that you want, rather than try and deal with something that's functionally obsolete and lead-based paint and the whole kit and caboodle. So,
yeah,
very
absolutely.
smart.
And if you're building something to keep too, the energy codes now are like so much different. So you actually save money on energy costs and utilities on new construction. And not to mention, even if you renovate something, if you don't replace all the pipes, for example, you might have a water leak down the road that's a major expense, or you might not replace the water heater right away, but then you have that expense 2 years down the road. Whereas new construction, you can be fairly confident that you're going to get 10 plus years out of it before you start having any major expenses.
Yeah, very good point. That deferred maintenance is a killer.
Yeah.
Too. I have a triplex that's from I think the 60s. And yeah, there is such thing as deferred maintenance. You got to factor that in when you have a rental for sure, and a lot of times builders have 1-year warranties and so forth. And you've got a lot of protection there. And of course, you've got your manufacturer's warranties, right?
Yeah.
So smart. And we're talking like we assume everyone knows this, but if you're listening to this and you don't live in the city of Boise, this is applicable to everyone listening, because there's always zoning law changes in your particular town or municipality. But Boise had huge zoning law changes. What was it? Was it December of
23? Yeah, December 1st. Yeah.
So here we are talking almost a year and a half after they've gone into effect. And Zach, do you think that they've been on the whole received? And is it really making a difference for your business?
Yeah. So there's probably two major things more than that, but there's a few things that change that are.
Yeah, unpack the two major things.
Yeah. So number one is ADUs. Prior to the zoning code change, it was almost impossible if you didn't live in the house to have an ADU.
And what's ADU mean?
ADU is accessory dwelling unit.
Okay, so just in case somebody's not sure.
Mother-in-law quarters, that kind of thing. Right. And basically that can be either attached to the house or a separate structure or whatever. So prior to the zoning change, it was limited to 700 square feet, and that was an upgrade from previously to that. But then it required extra parking if you had 2 bedrooms, and you had to live in one of the units. So essentially that that kept developers and builders like me from building a new house with an ADU, because essentially,
You'd have to move in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we couldn't sell it. So, like, you couldn't actually build it to sell because the city wouldn't permit it if you were building it to sell it.
Oh,
It was, yeah.
okay.
So it was very restrictive. And so with the new zoning code change, that was probably the biggest thing, is they removed that zoning restriction where now you don't have to live in one of the units. So any investor can build an ADU on a property that they own, or even like me, I can go in and build a house with an ADU and then sell that. And a lot of times as a builder, if I design it and build it with the ADU, I might not be making an extra, like it might be break even in some areas of town. Sometimes it might be an extra 20 or 30,000 from what I put into it. But if you do it, making a little bit extra income, that's always worth it. But also it's just helping the affordability for rentals for homeowners, but also just in town, we need more rentals. It's twofold. It's helping the homeowner and it's helping people find more affordable housing. So that was a big one. And then you can also build them up to 900 square feet now, 2 bedrooms, and there's no extra parking required. So that was a lot of times the hindrance is the parking, and now you don't need that. And if you have room for parking, you might still put it in, but you don't have to, which is nice. And then another couple other things with the new zoning is the density in all zoning areas changed. It increased, sometimes up to double. Sometimes in some of the zones, they actually removed the density requirements at all. So there's no max density. How you get limited on density is like building height and all meeting your setbacks and mainly parking. And so that's basically how they put that artificial limit, is if you can only fit so much parking, that kind of limits how you can build. But with the two most common zoning areas, which is R1C and R2, basically you can build a duplex now on pretty much any lot. As long as you can fit 2 parking spots, you can build a duplex. And then an ADU without having extra required parking, you can build an ADU.
No
pretty much
neighbor
any lot.
approval or anything like that.
Yeah, you don't have to go through the whole as many steps. You still have to notify your neighbors, but they don't necessarily have any input.
Okay.
And then there's also some incentives where on any duplex or on any single family lot, if you meet their green energy or affordability incentives, you can actually build a triplex or a fourplex if you can meet the parking requirements again. So essentially on any single family lot in Boise, you can fit up to 5 units or build up to 5 units. So that's a fourplex and an ADU, as long as you can meet the parking requirements and you meet one of their incentives. So it's interesting.
Okay, and the incentives, does that have to do with affordability?
Yeah,
so I've been hearing some stuff about that.
Yeah, either affordability or the green energy. So the affordability is interesting because essentially you have a 20-year deed restriction. So if you're keeping it as a rental, you have to, half your units need to meet affordability requirements, which you have to make it affordable to 80% median income. And so that kind of limits what your rental intake can be. And a lot of times it makes the deal not pencil. In fact, every deal I've analyzed so far doesn't pencil, which is unfortunate. And it's almost, if you get it to pencil, it's because you're going to say, okay, I'm going to limit it to make sure I have a family of 6 that rents, because I can get higher rents that way. And then you're opening yourself up to lawsuits for discluding people. So it's unfortunate that it's not necessarily working right now. Maybe with lower interest rates at some point it'll pencil better, but just in the current climate, it doesn't necessarily work. But then the other side of that coin is the green energy, which is if you build it to meet silver LEED status, which most new construction is really close to meeting that anyway. There's a few extra things that you have to do. The biggest thing is you just have to get it certified, which you pay the fees and everything to do that. So it adds $30,000 in cost to the build, but then you have a more energy efficient house than normal, and then you can increase your density a lot of times.
Okay, cool. When you talk about 5 units or fourplex plus a ADU, that's one owner owns that and maintains it as a rental. You're not specifically deeding off like a townhouses, right?
Yep.
It's one unit. Okay, because I think there's been some confusion about that as well. So that's the second main thing, right? In the zoning?
Yep.
What is I've been hearing some things about minor land division, and that's changed.
Yeah, so that's another major change. So they used to have an administrative approval for minor land division. This is like probably one of the few things that actually got more difficult under the new zoning. And I think the way the city looks at it is they were going to incentivize it. In order to do a minor land division, you have to meet affordability requirements, which that doesn't work for most projects. Now you basically have to go through the whole subdivision process to do like a simple lot split up to 4 units.
Okay.
And so that's gotten a little bit harder, but there's also a ton of opportunity still in it. Even though it's a little bit harder, it's basically created extra opportunity because you have higher density. In R1C, for example, it went from 8 units an acre to 12.4. So now you have smaller lot sizes. A lot of times you can maybe actually split off a lot where previously you couldn't because you had to meet the higher lot size requirement.
Okay, cool. I heard you say in something recently there was a number of 0.16 of an acre. What's that? Is that the
Yeah. So
smallest lot you can split? Or
yeah, so basically 0.162 in
oh,
R1C would be like a big enough lot for 2 units. If you look at 100 of those lots, you might have 2 of those that work for a lot split, but that's the starting size lot that you can do a lot split with.
okay. So if someone is an investor, I'm just thinking of an example. An investor has a 0.25 lot on the bench.
Yep.
They probably could put a second unit on that property. And then when it's time when they want to go ahead and exit out and sell, they'd be selling that whole parcel with 2 houses on it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's take that example. So if somebody had a 0.25 acre lot, so number one, they could build an ADU on it, most likely, as long as they have the space in the backyard, or even if they don't have the backyard space, but maybe they have a garage, you take the roof off the garage and build above it, or you add on to your house or convert a basement or whatever. But typically you can do an ADU somehow. Or they could also add on to their house now, because any lot you can have a duplex. So you can actually build an addition and turn that house into a duplex and add an
Perfect.
ADU.
Okay.
So you could actually add 2 doors to the same lot, potentially more than that even, also if you can meet the parking requirements. But then if they have basically a 25-foot wide lot that they could split off, so say 25-foot wide plus the extra 5 feet for the setback of the existing house. So if they have 30 feet beside their house that they could split off, then they could split that lot off and have another buildable parcel. And then you can build, if you want to build something and keep it, you can do that, or build it and sell it, or just sell the lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is really important conversation too for any realtors listening.
Yeah. 100%.
I'm thinking from my realtor hat right
Yeah.
now, thinking about that when we're showing properties, whether it's got to be most likely a neighborhood with no HOA, right? So
Yeah, and it's so it's really pretty much
bench.
so like the older parts of town. So most of Boise is until you get to the outskirts, but the
Yeah.
Bench, North End, East End, West Boise, West Downtown, Northwest Boise, like all those areas have a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely know that's an important factor, because I
Yeah.
think a new realtor could be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to find this CBH home on this large lot and put a house on it. No, no, no. That you have HOA dues and
Yeah.
you've got CC&Rs, covenant codes and requirements. So you got to find that creative strategy. And I think it's cool. You have this mix. You might have this house that's built in the 50s, and then you've got a new build adjacent, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you've got the best of both worlds. Whether you got a rental, someone wants classic and somebody wants modern.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And really like getting back to also like other towns. So you can do lot splits in other towns too. And it is in the older parts of town, but it's neat because you can basically add to the eclectic nature of the towns and build something that kind of fits in the neighborhood, but that's new. But yeah, Meridian, older parts of Meridian, you can do lot splits, Nampa, Caldwell. There's a lot of opportunity in Garden City right now. And
There's
so,
a lot, and Meridian, I'm really excited about downtown Meridian,
Yeah.
all the stuff that's burgeoning there, and new restaurant. One of our favorite places is 830 Commons. Have you been there?
I haven't yet.
It's good, right downtown Meridian, and it just when the spring comes and the fountains are on, and I really think that's going to be mark my words if you're listening to the show in a few years, but I think it's going to be a real place to be, and I'm excited to have suburbs finally having that sense of community.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Garden Cities. Let's
Yep.
talk a little bit about what's going on in Garden City. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'm like, out of everything in Boise, I'm like so excited about Garden City. If anybody's been to Garden City recently, they have the new boardwalk. So that's a new like
Yeah.
higher end apartment complex, but then they have restaurants and stuff right off the Greenbelt. I haven't actually gone to any of those yet, but I've heard good things. And it's just a super cool spot. And then there's several new apartment complexes down the street from that. But it all started around the Whitewater Park area. It's probably been 15 years or longer now that they started to develop that. And that's kind of gotten more and more developed. So I moved here in 2011, and I have a friend that owns a townhouse in that area. And so I've just seen it grow since then. It's just been exciting in that little
Right.
pocket. But now that's expanding across the whole Garden City area. So basically there's a ton of opportunity from that 34th Street area all the way down to the new to the fairgrounds. And I don't know how many people are familiar, but they're basically developing the old horse racetrack
Right.
into an 80-acre park. And so I think the construction is actually underway on that now. So that's just an
Yeah, and we're
exciting
getting
new
a
part.
pro soccer team or
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, so that's exciting. And then really basically all the development or redevelopment has expanded westward. And so now it used to be that anything east of Veterans was more ideal, and you're still dealing with all the trailer parks in the area that are, if you're an investor or somebody that's, I don't want to knock trailer parks, but a lot of that stuff is going away because it's getting replaced with new development. And that's exciting for me as a developer and builder. And there's just a lot of opportunity there because it's all zoned medium density or more. So sometimes commercially, but medium density mostly. And that's 34.5 units an acre. And so basically most of the parcels in Garden City were about 0.68 acres. And so on that size of property, I think it was like 21 or 22 units that you can build potentially. And so it's just allows you to put in a lot of units on these smaller lots, and you can still get them for relatively cheap. And so there's a lot of potential there. So I actually have several developments that I'm doing right now that in Garden City west of Veterans that's going to add like townhomes and more. The nice thing with Garden City too, because you can do more density and because you're in a transition period, a lot of it's going to be more on the affordable side. At least the stuff I'm designing is going to be that in the more affordable range. So 400 plus or minus. 3 years from now when they're built, that might be 500. I don't know. But right now it's more on the affordable side than most other things in town.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think there's always a myth about investors, right? And that we're just out to make every penny we can. And obviously you're in it to make a profit. But the fact that you're taking the time to build affordable housing, it's such an important issue right now with going on in our working class
Yeah.
that needs to be able to have homes. If they are a school in the teacher, in the Boise school district, I want them to be able to purchase a house
Yeah.
in the Boise school
Yeah.
district, or a police officer or whatever, public civil service, or there's just so many different challenges going on with that right now. So I love hearing that. And that's really exciting.
Hey friends, if you're busy like me, you're always on the lookout for trusted professionals that can help you with your business, home, and investment needs. Whether it's a trusted lender, real estate professional, or a vendor that might be able to come in and work on your home or your investment property, there's always a need out there. And we want you to have great resources at the ready. So Boise Rene has developed an exclusive vendor directory chock full of businesses that are ready to help our community. Head on over to boiserene.com, grab your free copy today, and don't forget, let them know that Boise Rene sent you.
How are you juggling all this?
Yeah. So
You're building here, and
yeah, I work a lot, but I've established relationships with a lot of people, and I hand off a lot of stuff, and I need to hand off more still, but
yeah.
I don't have a big team myself, but I do like partner with other people to take care of certain things. When we're going through entitlements, for example, I work with some people to handle the process of that. And that allows me to, one, it's making them money, but it's also taking more off my plate. So I'm not managing it myself, for example.
Right.
And ultimately, like, project management is not necessarily my strong suit. I'd rather hand it to people that are better equipped with the skills that I don't have.
Gotcha. That's amazing. So you mentioned partnering with people.
Yeah.
How are people working with you? I know that you work with private money, you work with partners. I'll send an example. If I was a landowner in Garden City right now, I'm listening to this podcast and I've got a third of an acre, and I called you, how would you be able to present some options for me?
Yeah. And that's a great point because so we approach anything like that in a few different ways. So one, ideally, we have some way where the owner can either just carry the note on it. So we'll say, we agree to this price, and then you carry it until it's constructed. And then a lot of times there's some win-win situations there too, where maybe they get a finished unit at the end and that's the trade.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that actually a couple times, and it's a great option for everybody. It's a win-win. So that's an option usually that we'll approach. We'll also approach it as, carry this note. We'll add an extra interest or give you a higher price as long as you carry it through to the end. Or we'll say, let's partner on it and we'll determine what the value is now, and then you'll take a share of the profits at the end as well. And basically that just lowers my out-of-pocket costs. We can also do a cash offer, but it's typically going to be maybe a little bit lower, or it'll be market value, but usually the homeowner or the landowner can make more money by holding on to it for 3 years through development. And it's easier for me because I don't have to go out and raise that money. And then I also work with investors and private money and that kind of thing to fund land purchases. And I guess I can get into too with land. It's part of the reason why it's not as much competition is because you're not really going out and getting a regular like bank loan on it. Most banks don't loan on it. If they do, it's not favorable terms, and it's just easier to like pay for it in cash. And then it's just creates a lot less issues to just buy it in cash. So then that cash has to come from somewhere. So either you raise funds or you have that cash or whatever. But yeah, so as a homeowner or landowner, we do partner with people or ask them to carry a note or do some kind of other exchange where we give them one of the new units, pretty much anything that is a win-win for everybody.
Okay, cool. And so it's hard for people to get regular bank notes on it. So how do you fund these projects?
Yeah, so I work with investors. So throughout my flipping days, I funded a lot of that with my own funds plus hard money loans or whatever. And my very last flip was the first time I ever used private money. And then my very first development, I used private money. And that's where it was a game changer for me. And because I spent years like doing it myself and showing that my system worked, it created, I guess, trust with people that I can be responsible with their money. And so basically I had my personal friends invested with me, friends and family, and then that's expanded now. So I have other people that just really just like from my stuff being out there, people can reach out. And I'm in different networking groups and everything. So it's really just all about establishing those relationships and then using private money to fund deals. And then we can either set those up as the easiest way, especially if somebody's trying to start out with private money, is setting it up as debt. So then you're basically that investor has a deed of trust on that property. That's their security. And then you also give them a rate of return. So if that's 8%, 10%, 12%, whatever it is, and then that investor knows what their return is going to be. Typically on land, I'm going to structure those so that they're paid out at the end because I don't want to be making payments on something that's not generating revenue for me. And a lot of investors, that's still appealing because now at the end of 3 years, they're going to have a big chunk of money that they're going to get back. And then they can reinvest it. And I've had people reinvest in my deals too. Yeah, so that's one way. And then as I've grown and scaled, I'm getting more into where I'm going to be working with accredited investors and doing partial shares. So they'll share in the profits on the deal. I'm also structuring a deal where it's going to be set up as debt, but then also have a profit kicker at the end.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of different stuff you can do.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the level of tenacity that what you've been doing takes and the consistency, because this isn't a business that happens by accident.
Yeah.
And I've seen you grow over the last couple of years. What do you attribute that to? I know last year you talked about a habit tracker, like how you tracked your goals. Tell us about your personal habits, how you've been able to create this consistency and momentum, which is enabling you to scale now.
Yeah. So about 10 years ago, I started with just a schedule on a spreadsheet to be able to really schedule my day better in smaller increments. And even going back to college, so I had a summer job where we had like goal periods. So we'd break those down into an hour period and you had a certain amount of certain goals that you had to hit in an hour. So now in my life, I basically scheduled my day out in 15-minute increments.
Okay.
Now I time block. So I might have 8 or 12, 15-minute increments scheduled for something. And then on my habit tracker or daily schedule, I've gotten down to focusing on, okay, I need to get this one big thing every day knocked off. But then there's always when you're an entrepreneur, you always have a million things on your plate. So what it really helps me do is say, okay, this is the number one priority. And then I'm going to have these other priorities that I also need to get done. And some of those only take 15 minutes. Like every morning I review like all the new MLS listings that fall in my category of things that I look at, which maybe we should talk about that too, and how I'm seeing opportunities. But that's 15 minutes every morning as I look at new listings. And that only takes 15 minutes, but that's one of the things that's on my schedule. And so I give myself a point system. It's 500 points a day.
You're still doing that. Okay.
Yeah,
you mentioned that last year. Good for
yeah,
you.
So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I go in like periods of like where I use it more. So I might go in a period of a month where I don't use it at all. And then I kind of have to get back on track because it really is like my life is completely different when I'm using it consistently, and really not necessarily more or less efficient. I would say I'm more efficient when I'm using it, but also like more balanced, because when I can really schedule in my personal time, that's key to me. Is if I can go out and get my exercising in and my social time in And also then I'm more productive at work typically when I'm getting everything else in that I want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you mentioned we should talk about this. Let's do this. Where are you finding your deals, Zach? I know you're licensed, and
Yeah.
so when you said you meant Zach has a real estate license, which enables you to get on the MLS
Yeah.
and take a look. Are you finding deals on market? Because I heard there's no deals on MLS.
Not a single deal. No. Yeah. So I am licensed. I don't really like, I use realtors now to list my stuff and everything, but it's really just for my own purpose. So I can get on there and check comps when I need to. But yeah, I see at least a deal every week or two that falls in my parameters of where it makes sense for me. Or really right now, I'm like helping people that want to add rentals or add wealth. There's 6-figure opportunities every 2 weeks at least, usually about once a week. And so I'm seeing those, and I have like kind of a short buyers list right now. And those there's deals that come and go all the time. And I'm like, man, you guys need to be jumping on this. And so really there's, again, 6-figure opportunities almost every single week. And so I see those and I put them on a list. So I actually have a spreadsheet that I keep track of opportunities that have a lot of potential. So it's usually 6-figure potential. And what I mean by that is it's usually lot splits. So there's opportunity in there to split a lot, and then you can either sell that lot or ideally hire me to build your next rental duplex or single family plus ADU or whatever.
Mhm.
And that's why I track that, is to basically help other people. Again, they can make 6 figures by selling that lot off. They might be able to sell that lot for 150, 180, something like that. Or take that equity and roll it into their new rental now. And now they have that equity going into it, and they can actually cash flow, or a lot of times maybe not necessarily cash flow on a long-term rental, but they might break even on that long-term. And then over time, obviously rents go up, and it's great. It has great write-off capabilities and all the fun
Yeah,
stuff.
all the
rentals.
great things about
Yeah.
real estate, buy and hold real estate, which is another episode, and part of why
Yeah,
we
yeah.
exist at Boise Reen is to help people understand the power of real estate.
Yeah.
And you're just helping them maximize it, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So really, like on these opportunities, so it's basically the lot splits. The houses are typically anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 that you have these opportunities. So you can go in and, let's say you're looking for a rental and you put 20% down on this house. You're probably not going to cash flow, but maybe you break even, or maybe you're paying an extra couple $100 a month. But now you're creating 6 figures of equity by doing that lot split. It does take a little bit of time, but if you're going to buy a rental anyway, and you're going to put $100,000 down on it, and that's going to generate $100,000 or more in income, that's a pretty good return on investment. And so I see those deals literally almost every week, sometimes multiple a week. But right now I have a list, like on my list, there's probably 10 active opportunities that have either subdivision potential, like where it's a small to medium sized subdivision, but it's mostly in lot splits.
Okay. So I think a key is you've got to focus, because there is so much opportunity when you're really think through what's going on in our market, but you've got to focus, because if you're looking for this lot split potential, and you're looking for fix and flips, and you're looking for vacant land in Alabama and all the things, I think that's where people get hung up and they overly complicate things. And I see here just this great opportunity for those that want to take advantage of it, to take this window of time when we've got this housing crunch, and then this opportunity with the zoning changes. And I love how you've just maximized it. So if you're listening and you're like wondering what to focus on, I would challenge you to pick a niche like this and really take the time to delve in and play with some numbers, learn about it, look at the MLS, test some lots, and run through scenarios, right? Is that a good advice?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really can be intimidating if you don't know where to start, but you've just got to start somewhere and focus.
Yeah. And I think the niche thing is so key. One thing that people say a lot is the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
And really that's, especially if you're either a new investor or not super experienced, you're probably a little bit all over the place. And really there's opportunity everywhere. I would say what I've been talking about with lot splits and everything, that's a huge opportunity right now, that there's not the same opportunity as other areas. If you're wanting rentals in Boise, like you really should be looking at lot splits and then building, because you're creating extra value there that you're not going to see on the normal market. And there's very few people that are looking at lot splits. So you're not dealing with all the same competition as you are when you go out and or you're trying to find a rental that pencils.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason you're comfortable saying that, because we are in a small town, is because one, your abundance mentality, but two, we know from experience that most people aren't going to take action like you did.
Yeah.
So I encourage you, if you're listening, be the few that take action. And we've got Zach here as a resource in our network and such a wealth of information. He actually spoke at one of our events last year, and that was really powerful. I know that video is available for our members to go back and watch, because there's people in this community like myself, like Zach, that are an open book. We're here, we're sharing from what we know and what we know works and doesn't work. Definitely do not be intimidated. Ask questions anytime. I know Zach is great at just answering questions at our events and on social media. By the way, where can people follow you?
Yeah, so Instagram, I do a lot of stuff there. I have my Matson Home Builders Instagram, but then I also have That Flippin' Guy.
Without a G.
Yeah, without a G at the end of flippin'. It goes Flippin' Guy. So there, and then my website, Matson Home Builders, which we'll actually be relaunching next week, that kind of more entails everything that we're focused on right now. So yeah, those places mainly, and then friend me on Facebook, whatever. And then I did want to plug a little bit Boise Green too, because there's so many great resources. I actually met Asonicky just a couple weeks ago because I have this deal on West Downtown off of State Street that I'm designing we're converting the existing house into an ADU and then building a duplex at the front and basically just designing it as Airbnbs. And so I actually,
cool.
Matt was like, great. I just went and talked to him and he gave me some really good insight on how to design it for Airbnb versus long-term rental and how, like the little differences that you do. And so I've actually implemented that now into like pretty much every approach that I'm going to approach with rental properties. Is basically we can design something that's optimized for Airbnb as opposed to long-term rents.
Oh, that's really cool. I love that. And that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
rentals, whether they're going to be medium term, long term, or short term on those. So we'll do another,
Yeah.
that's like a long-standing argument, which one is best, and there's pros and cons. So that's a whole nother
Yeah,
conversation. So on a personal note, I'm thinking about the professional piece, and I know you're continuing to scale and so forth. You have anything on that goal list of yours that's on a personal note you're excited about the next couple of years hitting?
Yeah, I think mostly it's more just, so I set rewards for myself when I hit my points. I get excited about just like making time to go out hiking in the foothills. That's like probably the most exciting thing like on my daily list that I do. But then when I hit my point system, I have goals and rewards that I reward myself. I'd say scheduling trips, like one of them was going to be going to Jerusalem. That's kind of off the list until that situation is better. But then the other one is going to Patagonia, and I'll probably end up doing that next year.
Cool. I love it. Travel is one of my big whys, man.
Yeah.
It's huge. And then there's people like Corby in our group that can model, oh yeah, I can run a business and have all these rental properties and travel the world 2-3 months a year. And I'd love to get to that point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm working towards that too. It's just right now it's a little bit more on my plate than allows me to travel all the time like that. But
thank you so much for your time today, Zach. I learned a ton. I know the audience has too. I know they know how to reach out to you for questions, and we'll keep the conversation going. But you haven't heard or seen the last from Zach. He's going to make a great impact here and is already making a great impact here in the Treasure Valley. So we'll sign off, and thanks so much for watching the Idaho Real Estate Investors Show. We will catch you on the next episode.
thanks, John.
Well, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for joining me here at the Idaho Real Estate Investors Show. I hope you're leaving with new insights and inspiration to help you truly grow wealth through real estate. If you enjoyed the show, do me a favor. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those that can benefit from it. Go and grow, and I'll catch you on the next episode.